So tonight will be really interesting. I'll be talking about the course along with Joel. Dr. Orlowski's here, as well as Melanie White. And what we'll do is go through the slides with you all. Please put information in the chat if you have any specific questions. We will have a time at the end for Q&A, but please, as we move forward, if you think of anything that you're interested in finding more about, just put it in the chat or save it for later. So I think we can just begin. So this is an evidence-based and thriving-informed approach for assisting clients as they move from stress to resilience to thriving. And this is a course that we've taught many times, and it's just a really, really interesting training. And as we move forward in this conversation, you'll learn a lot more. What exactly is Resilience to Thrive coaching? Melanie White is going to begin now.
Oh, thank you. Lovely to see some people from Australia here too. Great to see some locals. For me, I'm on the south coast of New South Wales and really lovely to be here. I'm here with my HACANSA hat on, and for those of you that don't know, HACANSA is the Health Coaching Association for Australia and New Zealand. It's our industry body. It's the kind of the equivalent of NBHWC in the US. And we're an organisation that supports coaches in delivering professional services, and we ensure that all sorts of training courses that are delivered are the right quality and tie into the codes of ethics and standards, scope of practice that are required for professional coaches. And it's really wonderful for HACANSA to be in partnership with Real Balance and ALS in delivering this training.
Okay, so I'm Dr. Mike Orlowski, and I'm really happy to be here to kind of assist in this webinar here tonight. Real Balance Global Wellness Services has trained probably over 15,000 health and wellness coaches all around the world. We've had a trainer in the past in Australia, and we've trained a number of people there, as well as New Zealand, and presented at the HACANSA conference in the past, which I really enjoyed very much. Real Balance has been offering this Resilience to Thrive coach training class through Joel Bennett for a number of years now, and we're real happy to be collaborating and offering it once again. I'll tell you a little bit more about Real Balance in one of the coming slides here.
Right, and all I'll say is that it's really a pleasure to have this collaboration. We believe that collaboration is so important, especially with everything going on in the world. And having built these relationships and getting credentialed from HACANSA and Real Balance is really helpful for us because our focus is on evidence-based resilience and taking these tools and giving them to coaches. So the only way we could do that is through this collaboration. Very important.
I'll speak briefly to setting professional standards, because if anybody here is working as a professional coach, you know how important our reputation and our credibility is. What you're seeing on this slide is the logos of various organisations across the world that are involved in setting professional standards for coaching for our industry, and Health Coaches Australia New Zealand Association, or HACANSA, is one of those. What's really essential is that these organisations, if you're a member of them, are involved in advocating for our profession and ensuring that the training that we do as core competency training or professional development training is of the appropriate standard, that the trainers are appropriately qualified and experienced. And I think especially in the context of resilience, managing stress, mental health, these are global issues. And there are very few training courses that coaches can do to develop specific skills in these areas with an evidence basis and with an array of tools to help them really support clients and stay within their scope of practice. I think that's so important to think about. How do you work within scope of practice? And I love this training course and its approach, because it clearly defines a way for coaches to work in a very specific way with stressed people to help them thrive and stay within their scope.
Yes, and we had to work with HACANSA to make sure that the course met their standards, as well as with Real Balance. I'll just take a quick moment. I'm one of the 3 primary course instructors. I have been doing coaching off and on for 20 plus years. Although my primary work is with workplaces and systems, every once in a while I will have an individual client. And I did, through Real Balance, get certified as a health and wellness coach a few years ago. So that's a little bit about me. And Melanie, you can share more about a lot of the work you do in this area.
I'll keep it a bit brief, Joel, so as not to take over. The first half of my career, I worked as a biologist, and I realised that really my love was working with people. And I've been a certified health and wellness coach since 2010. Most of my clients have been middle-aged people going through different sorts of life crises, and currently I run an organisation called Sage Women's Health. We're really noticing the intersection between menopause and that time of life with burnout and lots and lots of pressures, being a sandwich generation. So I think that this work in working with resilience is really important for my work, but also people working with anybody in going through major life transitions.
You want to say anything, Melanie, about your interest in work with menopause?
Well, that could open a can of worms, but to be succinct, I think a challenge for women in midlife is juggling all of the things. So it's not just your job, it's not just stepping into a more senior role, it's not just the fact that you might have kids leaving school, you might have aging parents going through their own journey, supporting all of these people, becoming an empty nester, but on the overlay of that is a significant hormonal shift, which can bring about its own mental health challenges, irrespective of what else is going on. So it's the perfect storm of difficulty, if you like. It's a very difficult time for women, and it impacts their ability to work, to earn an income, to support others and to support themselves. So the need for resilience in that age group is huge. Probably that's what I'd like to say. Thanks, John.
Yeah, and so it's an example, a very important example of how this work applies to a particular set of stressors. Thanks, Melanie. Cynthia?
Sure. Hi, everyone. So my name is Cynthia Canigliere. I work with Dr. Bennett at Owls. I'm also an independent health and wellness coach. I've been coaching for probably about 15 years now. So I work with clients one-on-one, also in groups. I personally have really found this training to be particularly useful in my own coaching practice. I took this training, I think it was 4 years ago. I think I was the first cohort of students back in 2020, was it? And it's just been an incredible addition to my own coaching practice, which we'll talk more about as we move forward with these slides. But my background is social work as well as mental health. So happy to be here today.
Michael. Michael will be a special guest, but he has more than a special guest in that he's informed and reviewed a lot of this material as well. So thank you, Michael.
Yeah, it was my pleasure. Yeah, it's such an important aspect of health and wellness coaching to bring this type of work in. And just a little bit more about my own background. I was one of the founding board members of the National Board for Health and Wellness Coaching, and I'm very happy to be a board member emeritus now, which means I just get to do fun stuff and not have to go to those meetings every single week like I used to. But I was the chair of the committee that established the Code of Ethics for the National Board and created the actual scope of practice statement. So like Melanie was saying, standards and credentialing is very important to us at Real Balance, and to me in particular, with my own background being a combination of being a psychologist with many years of clinical work. To me, scope of practice for coaches is really, really important, and something that I think we never want to get away from. We're also, as we train health wellness coaches all around the world, we also are approved by the International Coach Federation as a level 1 accredited coach education school. And my work in this field has really been pretty foundational. I've authored Wellness Coaching for Lasting Lifestyle Change, and also my more recent book, Masterful Health and Wellness Coaching, Deepening Your Craft. I've been involved in the wellness field. I think I went to my very first wellness conference in 1978. So I've earned all these gray hairs. That's for sure. And happy that Joel's been a part of that journey also. I've known him in the wellness field for many years. He and I have presented at programs, conferences like the Art and Science of Health Promotion, and other programs like that. And
EAP, we did the Employee Assistance Professionals Association.
yeah, really enjoyed connecting with that. And yeah, I think, as an instructor, he's quite delightful as well as super competent. So can't go wrong there.
Thank you, Michael. Two things. The books that Michael mentioned are going to be included in the class for people who come. They'll have those books as part of their toolkit. And I do want to say that scope of practice, now that we're moving into content, is very important because stress can sometimes be related to trauma. It could be related to a number of other mental health concerns. So we really make sure to talk about scope of practice. If a person is only a national board certified or Kansas certified, and they don't have a background in mental health, it's important to know the limits of the tools that we provide, but also the ability of the tools to segue into potential mental health referral. But the scope of practice is an important part of the work. So I'm glad Michael brought that up. Michael, is there any other comment you have about that? Or
Yeah, it's kind of a complex territory, you might say. I think it's something that every coach needs to study about. There's a really excellent journal article by Meg Jordan and John Livingstone on the differences between coaching and therapy, a very detailed reference, and it's referenced also in my book as well.
And we also include that article as well in the course.
Yeah, very good.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So some course details. I think, Cynthia, you'll talk about some of this.
Sure, I'm happy to. So you can see the schedule here. Basically, the course is organized so it will be held over 6 90-minute sessions over 7 weeks. First class is May 16th. Last class is June 27th. So there's one class that is skipped in June. 1 week is off on June 20th. I have a note here. Dr. Bennett will be available for office hours in between classes, and all classes will be recorded and held over Zoom. So these are the course requirements. We do ask that you attend all sessions. I know in some situations you may not be able to, and just let us know if that's the case, but we do encourage you to, as much as you can, attend every session live, ideally. You'll have an opportunity to meet in between sessions with a coach buddy to work on exercises. You'll complete a 15-item pre and post survey, very short survey, just to kind of assess things before the course and then after. And at the end of the class, you'll take a 20-item quiz, multiple choice quiz. You'll also complete a 250-word essay and complete an MOU. You also get some continuing professional development hours. So you can see here what's listed. So there's lots of CEUs that you'll be eligible for as well.
Cynthia, and just say there's newly minted 10 continuing education points with her Kanzar too for this course.
Oh, great. Thanks, Melanie.
Yeah, thanks, Melanie.
That's great.
So what happens in the training? Do you want to take some of these, or anyone? Should I cue it up, or?
Go ahead, Joel.
So it's a real combination. There's mini lecture. For example, we talked about scope of practice. We talk about a lot of research to support this idea that individuals can move from stress to thriving, and you'll be seeing some of that in a moment here. There's a good bit of group discussion. Many of the people who come are practice coaches, but we often have people who are just starting out as well. And so that generates a lot of discussion. There's paired exercises in breakout rooms and Q&A. Melanie, Cynthia, do you want to make any comments about those?
I just wanted to mention that it is a very interactive course. I think the participants really enjoy the interaction, which is part of the reason why that I just mentioned. It's really helpful if you can attend the sessions live.
Thing I'd add as someone who's quite a process and experiential learner, it was doing this course for me was really helpful to actually work through the use of the tools and some of the exercises. It really helped to cement my learning and allow me to apply it more easily. And I think that you have to have that practical experience in order to be good at something. So it's not just about theory, it's really about application. And that's really important from my point of view.
Yes, thank you. It is very balanced. All four of these areas, mini lecture, group discussion, paired exercises, Q&A, it weaves in and out of that with a focus on giving you practical skills. So while the next bullet point there, we do have some brief reading assignments, again, to support this idea of transcendence, transformation of stress, and what we call the potential of stress. There's a lot of focus on how does that actually apply through practical tools. And these are cognitive behavioral tools. They are evidence-informed, if not evidence-based. And the idea that stress could be a positive resource is not theoretical at all. And that's why we created this course. In fact, this was an offshoot from other work we had done. And a coach took our class and said, can you also give this to me? Because I'm using your tools as a coach now anyway. Can you now go ahead and do it systematically? And we said, okay, sure. So the research on this idea of resilience to thriving continues to come out. The brain research, social determinants research, post-traumatic growth, neuroplasticity, polyvagal theory. There's so much going on in this field, so that we also sprinkle the course with updates on research. I'll stop there, see if there's any comments from the other presenters on anything I've shared so far.
Well, one thing I'd just like to add is that I think what most coaches discover very soon after they start working with almost every client is that clients will tell you that stress is a huge part of the challenge in their life, and that they're poorly equipped to deal with it. They don't know very many strategies for how to deal with it, don't have very many resources. So it's going to be probably a part of most clients' wellness plan that you're going to be developing together. So to have tools, to have the knowledge and skills that we're talking about here, I think is a real key component of what you need to be able to bring forward as a coach. I often say we have to be able to kind of present to our clients what our coaching value proposition is. That is what we can do for you, not just how we're very client-centered and you're going to, create your own plan and so forth and so on. We have to be able to say what we can share and what we can do for you. And this kind of equips you to be able to do that in that area.
Yeah, Michael, anybody else? Melanie, Cynthia, want to comment? Or?
I just would add to what Michael just said. It's so true. as a coach, I'm dealing with so many different issues, right? You know, some issues are simple, you know, simpler, or I should say, maybe, you know, diet, exercise related. Others are very, very complicated, deep-seated issues. So completely agree with what you just said, Michael, with the importance of being able to really respond and, you know, manage and tackle very, very complicated issues with our clients.
So the idea here is how can we, what we're trying to do or what we're doing is giving a lifestyle coach or a health and wellness coach, a personal coach, an additional set of tools to help the client deal with those stressors that are keeping them from fulfilling whatever other plan they have, even a career coach for that matter. So this is meant to be a universal set of tools that apply to a whole variety of coaching sessions and situations. And it's for that reason, you know, it is, as Melanie said, highly interactive. My goal as the, you know, kind of lead facilitator is to create a safe space. And the people who come often share their own personal insights and walk away with not only professional competencies, but a deeper appreciation and understanding of their own resilience journey. In fact, that's part of the course. And so, but in order for that to happen, we have to create a safe space. And that's a big part of what we're doing by blending group discussion, paired exercises, and so forth, so that people can start to realize that even hard, difficult, you know, we make a distinction between a hassle, a stressor, a challenge, and adversity in our work. And you'll see that. And being able to discern, is this a hassle? Is it a challenge? Is it, you know, is it a trauma? Is it what it actually is a very important framework for coaches of any stripe. So we are credentialed, as we talked about. We've presented at the Institute of Coaching and the American College of Lifestyle Medicine, you know, and as you can see here, you know, we've been working with coaches in various professions. Cynthia, did you want to make a comment on this slide?
Let's see. So, okay, so I just wanted to, I guess, point out the fact that we presented to the Institute of Coaching back in March of 2022 about this training, which was really exciting. If anyone would like that recording, please reach out to me. Unless you're a member of the IOC, if you are, you can hear the recording. It's on the website. But if you're not, you'd have to reach out to me and I can get that to you. So we've had quite a few students who are members of the IOC who've taken our training. We also presented in 2021 to the American College of Lifestyle Medicine, which was really exciting. We presented a poster. And if anyone would like that, I can get you that poster as well.
So I'll just read these through. The objectives of the course: identify different levels of resilient functioning from adapting to thriving, and mind-body neurological functions that support resilience. Recognize how resilience operates across different organizational levels. This is very important. While the course focuses on individual coaching, and this has a lot to do with our background in workplace and organizational development, recognize that a lot of the stress employees feel, i.e. clients feel as employees, comes from having to deal with their boss or their work environment. So we don't neglect the context, and that also includes the multicultural context, social determinants, and the idea that resilience is a multi-level phenomenon, and that we want to give the individual coach practitioner an idea of how they can be more sensitive to the context of the stress that the individual client works in. Of course, I mentioned research, the cognitive behavioral practices, and we have very specific tools that we use to support that. So I'll stop and ask if there's any further comment from the panel on any of these objectives. And as Cynthia mentioned, if you're here and just joining us, please go ahead and tell us where you're coming from, you know, where you're located in the chat box. And if you have any questions, please ask them as well, and we'll get to them at the end of the presentation. Any other comments on this before we proceed? So it's a pretty straightforward set of objectives that allows us to get through the course in the sessions that we do. Here's a sample of some of the syllabus, and you can take a quick look at this. We also have, we talk about presence. We have a new book on presence that we use as well in this next cohort, and the importance of being present and showing up. But I will turn it over to Michael, because one of the wonderful benefits of the collaboration is that I tend to be a bit focused on transpersonal work, you know, the higher realms of human experience and self-transcendence. And Michael grounds me, because a lot of his many, many years of helping coaches, and when you get his 2 books, you'll see there's just amazing wealth of not just concepts, but tools to help ground the client in the moment of the coaching session, right? So Michael's developed those tools, and he is, as I said, a guest speaker for us. So I'll just turn it over to Michael, because he's in this, you can see here in one of the sessions, there are these practices that we talk about, and the action planning and evaluation. So I'll turn it over to Michael for a minute to talk a little bit about that particular work that we bring in.
Yeah, I want to pick up especially on what Joel just said about presence, because this is something that he has really created a pretty amazing project around. And presence is our way of being with someone. And I really believe that our way of being is actually more important. The how to be part is more important than the what to do part. Now, the what to do part is, of course, important. We have to have skills. We have to have knowledge about how behavior change works and all that. But if the coaching relationship, the coaching alliance, as I like to call it, is not a connection where there's trust, where there's a lack of judgment, where there's genuineness and warmth and all the things that good old Carl Rogers used to talk about, the coaching is probably not going to be very effective. It is about that connection, and that way of being that you have with your client is really the heart and soul of it. And I really encourage you to take a look at the work that Joel has been doing on the whole concept of presence and what that means. I mean, I'm sure he'll be integrating some of that into the class, and that will really serve you well. We're also going to be on this class taking a look at these coaching practices here: listening, meaning and purpose, process coaching, active listening skills. You know, don't underestimate them. Coaching is not just about asking powerful questions. You're going to find that if you're only asking questions, you're probably, it's like operating with one hand tied behind your back. You really want to have all the different skills of reflection, of knowing how to work with silence, knowing how to work with acknowledgement, and all the other skills that are such an important part of coaching. Meaning and purpose is central to that thriving that Joel's talking about. If we're going to move from just coping, just getting by, to actually thriving, it really, I think, comes out of having a sense of what your values are, of having a sense of meaning and purpose in your life, and living in accordance with those values. You know, the Institute of Stress in Montreal that McGill University is located in, one of the statements they made that really struck me was they said that perhaps the greatest type of stress that a person can experience is when they live out of accordance with their values. So helping people become aware of that and live by it in a more congruent way is really key to thriving. Now, process coaching, what do we mean by that? Well, that is kind of as defined by the people that wrote the book Coactive Coaching, the people from Coaches Training Institute, Karen Kimsey House, Laura Whitworth, all those people. And what they talked about with process coaching was honoring the emotional side of life and the emotional realm, and learning how to do that as a coach without crossing over that therapeutic boundary, staying within your scope of practice, yet acknowledging and knowing how to work with emotions is really critical to successful coaching. You may find that if internal change doesn't take place, all these attempts at external change probably aren't going to amount to much. So learning those skills as well is a real key. Now, all this leads to learning, awareness, insight, and so forth, but a person has to be able to move it forward. They have to be able to apply it. And that's really part of the beauty of coaching, is knowing how to really move forward and actually change behavior in an effective way that you want to see change. And by doing so with more than just a lot of willpower, but actually have tools and methods to create an action plan, to create a really fully integrated wellness plan, and tools to help people identify, what do I really want in my life? What kind of life do I really envision? What kind of well-life vision can I create? And how can I create a plan to make that happen? Sometimes I like to say that our well-life vision is the X marks the spot on the pirate treasure map, okay? But you've got to have the map to get there. And not just a lot of desire and a lot of wishing and hoping. It really does take action planning. It takes support. It takes accountability. And that's all part of the coaching process.
It's great. Yes, like I said, Michael and Cynthia and Melanie really ground the work, because it's one thing to talk about being and being present. Mm-hmm. It's another thing to be able to use tools in dynamic ways that allow you to show up to the client and allow the client to show up to themselves. Mm-hmm. So there's a dynamic here between presence and tool use. And that's a core part of what the course is about, the syllabus. So I'm going to walk through some content here. And as we talked about, please ask any questions. We'll get through this and then have time for Q&A. We are planning to go till the top of the hour, and then we'll have Q&A after that. So Michael mentioned wellness, and I think we take a lot from the National Wellness Institute, which is where Michael and I work together and we're on the board together. And we look at the whole human being across all these different levels. And the reason for this, and Melanie could comment or Cynthia can also comment, is that resilience to thriving also means getting in touch with one's wholeness, with one's sense that one is a whole and not a broken human being. And very often, people have a strength in one of these areas that can help them with the stressor or the challenge. So we want to make sure that we're covering all of these different dimensions. Melanie or Cynthia, do you want to comment on the dimensions, or which ones do you consider important, or how you bring the dimensions into your own work?
I mean, I guess I can respond to that. I would have to say they all are important, right? They're all related, intertwined. They all kind of play off each other. And just kind of thinking about my clients, it depends on the time in their lives, right? I mean, sometimes maybe we're focused a little bit more on certain areas, other times not as much. So I think, to answer your question, Joel, I would say they're all equally important at different times.
Just to add to this and to what Cynthia said, I think as a health and wellness coach, we often start with a Wheel of Life or a wellbeing questionnaire when we're speaking to people, and they come in with something very definite and firm in their mind as to what they want to change. And there might be a sense that they've neglected other areas of their life, but there could, as Joel mentioned, be a strength or an opportunity there for them to leverage that other experience and help them to come through the challenges that they're facing. So I think that this model is really great, and that it gets people thinking about their whole life, their whole being, their whole self, what they're really capable of, how resourceful they are, and how they can bring that into the sense of facing challenges. And as Cynthia said, everyone might have a different focus in a different stage of life, but there is also the opportunity to say, where is the past experience in another area that they could draw on right now? So I think this concept is really important.
Yeah, if I can just add to what Melanie's saying there, the other aspect of this that she's referring to is looking at all the strengths that a person has in each of these areas. We often discount those or don't acknowledge them enough. And if we can build on those using a positive psychology approach, it goes from a what's wrong and how can we fix it approach and a mindset like that into a mindset of more coach-like, one of instead of what's wrong and how can we fix it, the question becomes what's possible, what could be. That's really working toward thriving.
Wow. And there's nothing else I could say to add except that obviously you're starting to get hopefully you're getting a sense that we draw on so many different areas. There's so much out there on this shift to stress as a positive resource, and strengths-based, tapping into positive potential and positive psychology, positive mindset is a key part of that. And so what we do is we take these 6 dimensions, and this is one of the tools that you will get. And it shows you how we start to break the stressor down into what we call the secret power of stress, which is stress, evaluate, cope, resilience, and there's another E, thrive. So stress, evaluate, cope. So first we look at the stressor, as I mentioned, is it a hassle, a challenge, adversity, or trauma? We evaluate it. We look at how are we responding? And we look, are we just succumbing to it or coping? Is it possible that there's potential to this, which is more the resilience part? And then, the realization that comes through thriving. And then you can see here with all those different dimensions that there are stressors in each of those dimensions, and there are symptoms in each of those dimensions. Similarly, there's ways that the experience shows up at these different levels of response. And what we do as a Resilience to Thrive coach is the key thing is next level. What's the next level? Where's the client going? What's the next thing that I can help nudge them to? That's a core part of this work. So this is not a map that you give to the client necessarily. It's more a tool that you use as a coach and get the individual through the openness, through the process, through the tools to start recognizing, oh, maybe I could positively cope here. Or maybe I could, right? That's the purpose of this map. So we move from stress, evaluate, cope, resilience, and we move to thriving through evolution. And this is why this is a human potential transpersonal approach, because we're not just talking about getting by. We're actually helping the client move to the whole next level of their life, the whole caterpillar to butterfly effect, right? So that's what this is, a core part of this work. Any comments from the panel on this particular tool?
I'd just like to say I love this tool. For me as a coach, it really helped me to understand where my client is at and to help evoke self-awareness without being leading. And what I mean by that is we work with people and help them to become self-aware, but there are things that neither of us can see, the shadow side, if you like. And having a tool like this really helps us as coaches to explore each of the areas in enough depth that the person can become self-aware. So that's how I've used this tool, and it's really helped me to signpost where is the client in their journey. And where are they moving to? So it's incredibly helpful. This was game changing for me personally.
What we found, and again, is that coaches at any stage of their education gain these three things through use of this tool and others like it. First, self-efficacy. That is the confidence to support the client in their evolution. The resources, the tools and the research, and also the internal capacity to do that. And what we found, which we didn't know until we started doing research on this, is the ability of the coach to also self-regulate. Because when a client is sharing very powerful stressors and you do not have a mental health background, go back to scope of practice, you have to, many coaches will not go there because they don't feel like they have it. So when a stress comes up, they try to bring it back. Can we just talk about diet? Can we just talk about exercise? Can we just talk about this? So what we learned is that the tools that you learn also help you to maintain that process coaching perspective, come back to being present, right? And not only self-regulate yourself, but also create the environment, which we actually call it creating the couch, and help with that. So I'll stop there. Any comments from the panel on this?
I mean, I just would second everything you just said, Joel. I mean, what you learn in this training is exactly what Joel just described. You will learn how to handle complicated, issues with your clients. You'll be provided with a lot of tools, research, strategies for dealing with complicated coaching topics and subjects. And definitely, yeah.
One of the other tools is you're telling a resilient story, which is a part of the work that we talk about. This is a sample tool. You also get a copy of Raw Coping Power, which is filled with other tools as well that people use and provide potentially to their clients. So this is an example tool from that book. And I'll turn it over to Michael. This is a sample tool that we borrow from Real Balance. Michael?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Coaches are always kind of admonished to do a lot of goal setting with their clients, SMART goals, all that kind of thing. And something I discovered a long time ago was if you say to just somebody out of the blue, so what are your health goals? You usually get an I don't know response, unless they have like some chronic illness that they're coping with or something like that. Maybe they have something specific. But what I've found is that if you simply start to break it down into areas of their life they want to improve, what we call areas of focus, and then what are the goals that they need to achieve to help them improve that area, and then talk about this week, what are the things that you can do to take action steps that match with what they're ready to do, and what are those steps that they can do that will help them work on achieving those goals. Suddenly, this change process really makes sense. Everything is not a goal, okay? By getting specific here, it's really understandable for the person. So the area of improvement might want to be something like, I want to attain and maintain a healthy weight. So one of their goals is to be more active. All right, so being more active, what are the action steps I can do this week to be more active? So it isn't just goals for the week. Instead, it's what are the action steps that help you accomplish that goal? And then what are the indicators of success? That is, what does it mean to be successful in accomplishing any of these action steps? That is, how often will I, go for a walk, for how long, or, any other kind of way that we can get specific or maybe indicate what would be successful. If it's get more sleep, well, that's pretty ambiguous. What are we really looking at in terms of what would be the number of hours that you need, how many times a week that you would consider successful at this point? Maybe not ideally, you can get there eventually, but for right now, what would it be? And then very critically, who who will support you in this? You know, when coaches ask that before you go ahead and send the person out there to work on this for the rest of the week, they often find that there is more support needed. A way to build that support might be the first thing to do. It's really critical. And it may just be you, the coach. You may be the only sources of support. Or perhaps it's a partner at home. Maybe it's a four-legged fitness trainer. Whatever it is, that's your source of support. And then, you know, how will you have accountability around this? It might be as simple as we'll talk about it at the next coaching session, or maybe it's something you're doing more frequently that you need to do more often. Maybe you can set up some other kind of system involved with text messaging or email or something a little more frequent, getting real clear about that. And then finally, talking about what it's like when you complete it, and, you know, anything that you want to say about that. So it's a very thorough, fully integrated tool. It helps people be organized about it. And because there are only so many areas of focus, and I usually encourage it to stay to like 3, maybe 4, if there is an easy one to do, it keeps people from that self-defeating behavior of getting all excited about being healthy and well, trying to do so many things at once that none of it really works very well at all. So it makes it really pretty clear to people, and you can really work with folks, co-create this whole thing. And remember, it's written in pencil, so to speak. As you coach, it's going to evolve. And something that was really important, suddenly you realize it's not as important as something else that emerged. So it's really flexible. And you got to remember that too.
Perfect. And I think one of the takeaways from this, again, we'll get to questions and we're done, is that it's that always what's the next level? What's the micro step that you can encourage the client to, and then supporting them in that. And it's those small wins that move us to thriving. And really celebrating that completion. I think also, Michael, is also about celebrating with the client as well.
Right.
Have that empathic resonance during those periods of positive growth.
Absolutely.
So just to kind of wrap up the core principles and competencies of the course, because we wanted today to give you a broad overview, but also give a real strong sense of how deep these tools are, how much is covered. We identified 10 core, what we'll call competencies for empathic resonance. And that means being able to understand where the client's set point is. Are they succumbing? Are they poorly coping? Are they coping well? Are they resilient? Are they thriving? And that's this idea of, on the left side here, are they in fight, flight, freeze, or are they moving up the potential ladder? So how do we do that? And the core idea is empathic resonance. That listening, it's not just listening, but listening with presence. And then using the tools to do that. So I'm going to just quickly go through these, and then I'll ask if anybody wants to comment. The first principle is one's resilience story is fundamental. We take a good bit of time with the students in the class to get in touch with their own resilience story, because that's the muscle of identifying your own resilience, so you can empathize and recognize and resonate with the client's resilience when it shows up. Distinguish the momentary trigger from an ongoing stressor. That's a very important competency, because sometimes it's just getting through that particular trigger. Affirm and validate core elements of the resilience journey. So that has a lot to do with being able to pick up on, hey, that was great that you got through that. I want to point out here, it says identify and validate any multicultural, racial, ethnic, ancestral, or tribal strengths. So we also bring in this idea of multicultural resilience for clients who have experienced trauma related to discrimination and how that can be supported through getting in touch with those strengths. As I mentioned, supporting the client in transforming the environment. We use job crafting tool there. Again, utilizing worksheets as levers. Identify the current set point and look for, again, reinforce any next level signs, which I already talked about. Are you moving? Where are you? Maybe in spiritual you're moving, maybe in intellectual you're moving. And then the last ones are that creating that emotional safety we call the couch of coaching, finding the right tool at the right time, evaluation and monitoring. And the last one, Michael just reviewed, using the action planning. So those are the 10 core principles and competencies, and the course dives into these and also evaluates them. That is, beginning the pre-assessment and the post-assessment allows you to determine how well you have grown in the use of these in these different areas. We've actually found results with these, in fact, and identified these 3 different areas: self-efficacy, resources, and that regulation we talked about earlier. And you can see some of the research here that we've done with participants in the course, pre to post ratings. So we, as I said, this is evidence-informed and evidence-based. So we're always learning and growing. As Michael said, even though it has some very strong and solid elements, it's still a draft because we keep learning as students come and we keep growing. So that's the core of it. But I'll ask if the panel has anything else they want to add before we go to Q&A.
I want to thank everybody for being here, and I'm looking forward to some good questions for us all to field.
Maria has a question. I will unmute you, Maria. And you can fire away. Unless there was some in the chat box, we'll come to those as well. But Maria, do you want to go ahead?
Hi. So I have just a few questions. I noticed that in the slides, there's like varying CEUs depending on the boards. Specifically for MBHWC, how many CEUs would this course qualify for?
I believe it's 12.
12, okay. And then I just have 2 other quick questions too. The research articles. Will we have access to the full article?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, yes.
And once this is what happens, Maria. Once you tell me you have an interest in a research article, I'll then send you another 5.
Amazing. And then just does it include specialty topics like specifically for disability or neurodiversity?
I did mention that. Remember, one of the competencies I mentioned, getting in touch with strengths based on one's own background. We do cover that in that principle.
Okay.
This is where it's a great question. Everybody who comes has their own unique interests. And I think letting us know at the beginning of the course what your unique interests are, we do our best to work with that. In addition, because you have practice opportunities, if you are working with, for example, neurodiverse situations, then we would ask you to do a practice session specifically related to that earlier on in the course. So then you can draw on that experience, and then we can say, hey, maybe use this tool, and we'll come back again. So there's an opportunity for that, definitely. It's very important because remember I talked about, this is where I get into the weeds, but it's not just about individual, it's also social determinants. And that we have to always look at the individual in the context of their culture and race as part of resilience too. So we try to be sensitive to that. And also disability as well.
Thank you, Dr. Bennett.
Yep. Somebody on an iPhone, I don't know what your name is, but it says iPhone. And I think there's more than one iPhone in the world, so I wouldn't know which one that was. Okay.
Sorry, it's the only way that I have right now. My
Can you tell us
computer
your
is.
name, please? Do you mind?
Oh, this is Christy, and I took a course from you in I want to say it was 2018. I know it was before the pandemic. So anyway, do you remember me? You may not. You
I can't
don't.
remember the voice, but please proceed and we'll figure that out.
Okay. The idea is, and I'm sorry if I didn't do all the pre-reading on this webinar, but the idea is from the core course that you taught back then. So that was 6 years ago, right? It was called Coping, I think, and Thriving. And so can you just kind of tell me what would be the difference
Oh,
with this?
yeah. The core difference is that is a
Thank you.
curriculum. That course is a curriculum designed to be delivered in work settings and with groups. And it's not about the coaching skills at all. It's more about a very limited and brief set of tools to be used in work settings. This is for personal one-on-one coaching or group coaching to help people on their personal journey in a more in-depth context as a coach.
Okay, and then I guess a follow-up now that I know that is how much of this is going to be I mean you did tell us that we want to stay within our scope. I mean, as an RN, I'm always educating. But in terms of coaching, what is there a resource that you or your team, your board here could point me in the direction of that would kind of alleviate my fear about going outside of my scope as a nurse? And because I'm not sure that other nurses are going to do this because most of you are health educators and, but I don't want to get into a confusing, and I know it depends on my state board of nursing and all the rest. But I guess maybe you could tell me, do you have, nurses, doctors doing this class? Maybe that's a better
I'll turn it
question.
over to Michael and Melanie for a moment there. Go ahead.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, just to reassure you, there's literally thousands of nurses that have become health and wellness coaches. And the whole thing, when you have a qualification such as yourself, it's a process that we call wearing two hats. Basically, you are creating agreements with your client about how you're going to work together. And you may create an agreement where at times you may say, okay, it sounds like you need some really accurate information, some evaluation of some labs that were done perhaps, and you're qualified to do that. A lot of people certainly aren't. And with that qualification, you're able to say, let me put my nursing hat on and, speak to that. Then it's like, okay, so what does that mean to you? How are you going to make changes in your life? That's where you shift back to putting the coaching hat back on. So the what to do comes from the professional consultants. The how to do it is the work of the coach.
I love it. Thank you.
Mhm.
Melanie, do you have anything you'd like to add?
I think Michael just explained that so well. I don't have anything to add.
Mhm.
And perhaps the only thing I could say is that as a coach trainer for many years, I've seen a lot of people concerned about, oh, I don't think I can touch this area because I don't have a degree in that area. And coaching is very different because it's us drawing the answers out of the client. So just speaking to what Michael's just mentioned, our job is to be with the client and to help them tell their story and make sense of it rather than to try and advise, prescribe, diagnose, or any of those sorts of things. This course gives you the tools to have those conversations.
We love nurses.
That's literally beautiful the way you articulated that. Thank you so much.
Yeah, Phil. Hi, Philip.
Hey, Joel. Thank you, everyone, for this. I think along the lines of our friend, the nurse on the iPhone, I'm trying to sort of figure out in my mind how might I incorporate this, into my current consulting role, that I'm really kind of working with organizations and not individuals. And so I think that was sort of my question around the group aspect of it. And, this is maybe not a question you can answer that I need to answer for myself, right? Is, at what point do I have an opportunity to practice this? How do I integrate this into being a strategic consultant?
Oh, we're going to be here for another hour on this one. So I'll try and be very brief, but I'm always happy to have an offline conversation. So the process of, and I've written about this, and I think you're familiar, of moving from stress to thriving doesn't only happen at the individual level. It happens at the group level, the family level, the organization level, and even the societal level. And so the core ideas and framework are applicable across all those different levels. One of the core tools in the course is this tool, and you can look up job crafting. And job crafting is empowering the client as an individual, but it could also be as a group, to craft their work environment to support their evolution. So what we're talking about is the tools that, if you're coming with that lens, Philip, in the class, as I said, we customize. So we would work with you to apply these in your practice sessions, to apply certain tools to the settings that you're in. The reason I mentioned job crafting is it's a very concrete way of looking at how employees, I think in your situation, feel, I'll go down the list, burned out, alienated, disempowered, estranged, quiet quitting. And what we're doing with those set of tools is, again, how I talked about those levels, moving from stress, evaluate, cope, resilience, evolve, thrive, is helping the individual do things that allow them to change their environment in micro ways that allow them and their coworkers to start shifting. It's a very incremental micro process, but that's one way that this applies. I hope that helps.
Yeah, no, I think it does. I'm familiar with the climate of well-being research, and it feels like there are, constructs that, from an organizational psychology standpoint, almost, that can be kind of woven in to help move groups or elements of a company, if not, the whole company.
Oh yeah, changing climate is great that you brought that up, because even changing perceptions of the climate, how can you change what people are perceiving in that positive mindset, can have an actual influence on the climate. So that's a lot of what we talk about in the class.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, these are great questions. Anybody else want to respond to any of the questions that have been asked?
I do have one question. This is Christy RN again. On the layout of the course, you mentioned that we'll be paired with another participant. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's pretty straightforward. We ask you to meet with somebody in the class during a paired breakout to practice some of the tools. And then we also ask at different times during the class, meeting outside for a brief half hour to practice again. So it's an opportunity to continue to do that. The person that you're paired up with, of course, it's by mutual agreement to do that and to set up the schedule in a way that's accommodating. Does that help?
Yeah, so what you're saying is it's like a 1 or 2 time, you know, process with another
That's
coach.
right. I think twice is what we're asking. Although I will say, by the time we get to the end of the course, people will say, yeah, we met again, so
Okay,
that's not required.
gotcha. Thank you.
Hi. My question is, when this course is done, then what? Is there ongoing, meetings or support from the group? Or do you just drop us off the cliff and we're,
If you are, let's talk about this. If you're new to being a coach, we have other resources. So this class is all-inclusive by itself. If you want continual support, we're happy to provide that. That would be a separate agreement. At the same time, Real Balance Global Wellness, Akanza has a whole variety of other courses that can help you practice your skills and embellish and enhance. And I'll turn that over to Michael and Melanie to talk about other things you can continue to do. We have from time to time offered support for people coming back. And if the particular cohort says, yes, we'd like to meet again, then we do our best to kind of have a booster session. But generally, it is in and of itself self-inclusive. We also have a more advanced course sometimes, depending on the cohort. So, but there are many other tools that are available to you for continued practice and support. Michael or Melanie?
There we go. One of the things that you can do is check out both the ALS website and also the Real Balance website. On the Real Balance website, we have a wellness resource center that's really available to everybody, that has an incredible depth of resources. I don't know if it's over 100, but it may be by this point. Free monthly webinars that we do on all coaching topics with a lot of different important guests. People like Jim and Janice Prochaska have presented on that, and so forth. A lot of different resources there. We also have what we call, once you've enrolled in one of our classes, you also are available to get into the Coach Center, which also has instructional videos and all kinds of resources. There's also Real Balance groups on both LinkedIn and Facebook, and we have those especially for our students, and they're able to share information and ask questions back and forth with each other there.
Michael, can you give the website again? It's realbalance.com.
Realbalance.com. Mm-hmm. So, we'll keep you away from that edge of the cliff.
Yeah, especially given the background there. We don't want any jagged rocks to.
Yeah.
Melanie, any other resources you want to refer to? Or?
I think Becky might have also been talking about just staying connected too. And so if anyone here is a Akanza member, we have a monthly meeting where members can get together in a Facebook group. I think those sorts of things are great. And I know that you guys have done community of practice before. So there's lots of ways that people can stay connected with each other and talk through the use of the tools, in addition to any ongoing education.
Yeah, we have a group also that I think you're in, Becky. That's also a great way to stay in touch, and what I've found over the years with this class is, people, I think, really resonate with each other. Not everyone is a coach. I think sometimes people assume everyone's a coach. A lot of people are coaches, no question, but not everyone. But I think that in most cases, the participants really became close. Some of them still continue to talk to each other. So you probably would have a continual support system. A lot of our past students are very eager and willing to talk to newer students. So just reach out to us. We can connect you with people. And if you want to talk with a previous student, I'm happy to connect you with a few people that would be more than happy to talk with you.
Well then, Melanie, do you want to take us out?
Sure. Just thanks to everyone who made time to come today. I know we've got people from all over the world, which is amazing, and it goes to show how important this work is and how much the interest is growing, especially in Australia, where we've had the introduction of codes of practice around managing psychosocial hazards. Our ability to be equipped and tooled up and to have a process to know how to work with people within our scope's really, really valuable. And I hope that everyone's walked away with some great ideas today on how they can do that. So yeah, thanks to everyone, and thanks for hosting the webinar, Joel, Cynthia, and Michael.
Wonderful. Happy spring, which is also about moving from stress to thriving, by the way. Okay, take care.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone.
Keep calm and coach on.
Yeah.